Welcome to the deep dive.
Okay,
Especially for you students in Mr. A's World History class, listen up, because this one's really designed for you.
that's right.
We're diving into part one of the French Revolution, and we're going to really focus on that big question from your assignment. What were the underlying causes of the French Revolution?
Yep.
Think of this as your guide to connecting the dots, getting those aha moments.
Exactly. Our mission today is to look at France under King Louis XVI. You know, the system called the Ancien Regime, the Old Regime, basically everything before 1789.
Yeah.
We'll unpack the social structure, the politics, which were, well, complicated, and the new ideas bubbling up that really set the stage for this massive upheaval.
So we want to help you analyze the roles of like social classes, political structure, ideas,
Yeah.
and think about how important each one was.
Precisely, considering their weight, their impact.
Right. We've pulled together insights from readings, graphic organizers, even some visuals, to really paint a picture of France back then.
We'll explore how a king who really believed he had a divine right to rule could seem so, well, overwhelmed.
Yeah, ineffective even.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And how the rigid social classes created so much friction, and how this tangled government system really only benefited a few.
And the new ideas spreading in coffee houses, salons.
Absolutely. And even how something as basic as bread could spark riots. It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, let's jump in. Starting at the top, the absolute monarchy and, maybe surprisingly, its limits.
Right. King Louis XVI. He genuinely believed in the divine right of kings,
Right.
meaning he thought God put him there. Simple as that. All government authority, making laws, keeping order, it all rested solely with him, an absolute monarch, top at heap.
But despite claiming all that power, our sources say he felt really burdened by his responsibilities.
It's a real contradiction, isn't it? He apparently preferred hobbies like locksmithing or wood carving over, ruling France.
Yeah. There's that quote, "How lucky you are, why can't I resign too?" Tells you a lot.
It really does. Like a CEO who'd rather be in the workshop while the company's struggling. It gives you a sense of his disconnect, maybe.
And while he's feeling burdened, the spending at the Palace of Versailles is just out of control.
Legendary extravagance. It's about 12 miles outside Paris. Huge place. Employed something like 10,000 people.
10,000.
Yeah. And the cost, tremendous. Paid for by taxes on the common people. You can imagine the resentment building up.
Definitely. And getting into court, that was all about status, right? Needed noble blood or special permission.
Exactly. So power and privilege were incredibly concentrated among this elite group.
And the queen, Marie Antoinette, she became a real target, didn't she?
She really did. Being Austrian, she was already seen as foreign. Some even called her a spy.
Ouch.
Plus, her failure to bear an heir for 7 years, which was a big deal back then, and her spending habits, it all fueled public anger.
People saw her as extravagant.
Very much so. And that famous line, "Let them eat cake," about people having no bread.
Did she actually say it?
Probably not. It's likely untrue. But the fact that the story spread, that people believed it, it perfectly captured how out of touch they thought she was. It became a symbol.
Okay, so the king has divine right. But how did things actually work day to day? He couldn't run everything himself.
No, of course not. And here's the key contradiction again. He totally depended on the nobility and officials to execute policies.
And many of these officials, they bought their jobs.
That's right. They purchased their offices, literally bought positions that came with financial perks and political influence,
So it's this weird interdependence. The king needs the nobles and officials,
who in turn are using the system for their own wealth, status, and power.
which leads some historians to call it a plutocracy government by the rich for the rich.
Exactly. Because if you buy your way into being, say, a judge or a tax collector, your main goal isn't public service. It's protecting your investment right.
Makes sense. So real reform seems almost impossible if the people needed to implement it benefit from the old way.
It's a huge obstacle, deeply embedded.
Okay, let's shift from the king to the society itself, this rigid hierarchy. 3 estates, right? First estate, the clergy.
Yep. By law and tradition, the most important social group, even above the nobility. The Roman Catholic Church was incredibly powerful in France. Wealthy, too.
How wealthy?
Owned about 10% of the land. Collected tithes, like a tax on harvest, maybe 8 to 15%, and crucially paid no taxes themselves, just a voluntary gift of cash to the king sometimes.
No taxes, while owning 10% of the land.
Right. And people got resentful, especially because The top positions, bishops, cardinals, often went to nobles appointed by the king, concentrating wealth again.
And religious intolerance was a big issue, too.
Huge. No one was permitted to practice any other religion publicly. Protestants, Jews, they had few, if any, civil rights.
Wow. But the church did run things like schools, hospitals.
Oh, yes. Education, charity, hospitals, orphanages. They even handled administrative stuff like records, censorship. They were deeply woven into the fabric of daily life.
Okay. Then second estate, the nobility.
Around 300,000 people held this highly desirable status. Lots of special privileges,
Like what?
like being exempt from many taxes, getting tried in a special court, being immune from military drafting, perks the average person could only dream of.
And economically powerful, too.
Immensely. Owned about 1/3 of the land, collected fees and taxes from people living on their land. Most of the wealth and political power was in their hands. King's top advisors, mostly nobles.
And even the less wealthy nobles clung to their status.
Oh, absolutely. They relied heavily on collecting fees and really asserting their social superiority, which, just made everyone else resent them even more.
Understandable. Okay, finally, the massive group, the third estate, everyone
The
else.
vast majority. And it wasn't uniform. You had the bourgeoisie, the middle class.
Growing group.
Yeah, numbers tripled by 1789, maybe 2 to 3 million people. Successful merchants, businessmen, investing in land, new businesses, living pretty comfortably, actually.
And they were trying to climb the social ladder.
Definitely. By purchasing public offices, those positions we talked about 50,000 under Louis XVI brought wealth, status, security, though you usually had to be Catholic. Some even granted nobility.
And they were investing in education.
Hugely. Led to more schools, universities, newspapers, libraries, theaters, clubs. These became places where new ideas could circulate and be discussed.
There's that quote from Mercier in 1783.
Right. The distance which separates the rich from other citizens is growing daily, and poverty becomes more insupportable at the sight of the astonishing progress of luxury. Really captures that widening gap.
Okay, below the bourgeoisie, the peasants.
The largest group by far, over 20 million people, more than 85% of the population, truly at the bottom of the social hierarchy.
And their lives were grim.
Extremely. Hardship, hunger, suffering, high mortality rates, overwork, poor nutrition, illness. 1 in 5 babies died before age 1.
Terrible.
Lived in tiny 1 or 2 room, dirt-floored houses, often sharing space with animals. Disease spread easily.
And the taxes.
Crushing. Dues to local nobility, tithes to the church, that 15% we mentioned, plus taxes to the crown. They were left with maybe 15–20% profit from their crops. Many needed extra work just to survive.
And in cities like Paris.
Similar story. Paris had about 700,000 people by 1789. Lots of poverty and hunger, and everything revolved around bread.
Bread. Seems so basic.
But critical. The average male worker might spend half his wages on bread during shortages. It could jump to 75%.
3/4 of your income just on bread.
Imagine. So shortages and high bread prices inevitably led to public dissatisfaction and riots. And interestingly, women often participated in or led these demonstrations.
Why women particularly?
Often they were the ones managing household budgets, buying the food. When bread prices soared, they felt it immediately and acutely. Their families were starving.
Makes sense. There's another quote from Jean-Marie Roland.
Yeah, 1777. Workmen today need twice as much money for their subsistence, yet they earn no more than 50 years ago when living was half as cheap. Wages just weren't keeping up. Even servants felt that gap, that resentment towards their masters.
So we have a struggling king, massive inequality. What about the actual government structure? You said it was a mess.
Oh, it was. A tangled web of overlapping jurisdictions, developed over centuries, made governing extremely complex and often inefficient.
How so?
Well, France was divided into 39 provinces and 36 generalities. These were for administration, tax collection, but the boundaries overlapped, didn't align, caused endless confusion and inconsistencies.
Like trying to figure out whose rules apply where.
Exactly. Plus, huge regional variations. People spoke different languages, dialects, Basque, Breton, German. Regions had varying degrees of autonomy. Some set their own tax rates.
So taxes weren't even uniform.
Not at all. Salt taxes varied wildly. Some places taxed land, others taxed people. It was a patchwork, not a unified system.
And then there were the parliaments.
Right, 13 of them. The highest courts of law. They had the power to criticize the king's new laws. Kind of like a check.
But they couldn't actually stop him.
Ultimately, no. He could overrule them, but they could definitely make things difficult, delay things, and their jurisdictions also overlapped with provinces and generalities, leading to more disputes about which laws applied where.
And the laws themselves varied.
Yep. Customary law, kind of based on local traditions, mostly in the north. Roman law, more codified in the south. More complexity.
So this whole complex, inconsistent system, who benefited?
Well, it was often exploited by the privileged and powerful for their own benefit. Reinforces that idea of a plutocracy. The king depended on these nobles and officials, especially the ones who'd bought their offices.
They had no incentive to change a system that worked for them.
None at all. They wanted to preserve it, preserve their wealth and security, which meant the system worked against the majority of the population.
And there was no real parliament, like in Britain.
Not really. There was the Estates General representing clergy, nobility, and the Third Estate. It had not met since 1614, over 170 years. It was usually only called if the king needed new taxes. Shows how little voice the people really had.
Okay, so the structure is creaking, society is deeply unequal. Let's talk about ideas. The Enlightenment.
A huge factor. You had rising education and literacy rates, maybe a third of French people could read. And the growth of places for discussion. Newspapers, public libraries, theaters, clubs, coffee houses, salons.
So places for ideas to spread.
Exactly. New avenues for political discussions and the circulation of ideas.
And what were these ideas?
Enlightenment thinkers emphasized rationality and reason over tradition and religious authority. They wanted to improve society and increase human happiness.
Were they calling for revolution?
Not necessarily, not explicitly, but their ideas fundamentally challenged the authority of the king and the Catholic Church. As Diderot said, we will speak against senseless laws until they are reformed. It was an intellectual challenge.
Okay, who are the key players? Voltaire.
Voltaire was a major voice, criticized the absolute monarchy, the church. He admired Britain's system, constitutional monarchy, more freedoms. He really pointed out how poverty and dependence weren't just bad luck, they were products of the system.
Montesquieu.
His big idea was the separation of governmental powers, executive, judicial, legislative, like the U.S. later adopted, to promote political liberty. His famous line, "Power checks power, a direct challenge to absolute rule."
Diderot. You mentioned him. The encyclopedia.
Yes, his massive encyclopedia aimed to spread rationality, a critical attitude towards the church and state. He argued laws should be for everyone, not for one person, the king, advocating for universal rights.
Powerful stuff. And Rousseau. Maybe the most radical.
Arguably, yes. Rousseau argued all adult male citizens had the same innate rights. Totally undermined the idea of estates and privilege. He said governments only get legitimacy by protecting these rights.
And the king's power came from?
Not God, according to Rousseau, but from the general will of the populace, popular sovereignty. His quote is amazing. "The sovereign king cannot act save when the people is assembled." Basically saying the people hold the ultimate power.
Okay. Mr. A's class. Let's bring this all together for your assignment questions.
Yeah.
The roles of social classes, political structure, ideas. How important was each?
When you look at it, all the weak monarchy, the massive inequality between estates, that tangled and inefficient political system, and then these powerful new Enlightenment ideas circulating.
They all feed into each other, don't they?
Absolutely. They combine to create this environment of widespread dissatisfaction and a desire for change. It's not just one thing.
And these are the kinds of questions historians ask, right?
Yeah.
Weighing these factors.
Exactly. How much did the Enlightenment really cause the revolution versus, say, the price of bread? Historians debate that constantly. It's about understanding the interplay, the connections.
And this simmering discontent, all these underlying causes, they finally boiled over.
July 14th, 1789, the storming of the Bastille. That's seen as the start of the French Revolution.
But just the start.
Oh, yeah. As the sources say, closer to the beginning than the end of the whole upheaval.
Why is understanding all this still important for us today?
Well, the French Revolution was this period of incredibly intense debate and upheaval. It had massive, profound effects in France and beyond.
How so?
Borders in Europe would change. Completely new ideas about politics and individual rights would emerge that reshape the world. Ideas we still grapple with today. It shows what happens when a society reaches a breaking point.
Okay, so final thought for reflection, especially for Mr. A's class thinking about the assignment. Could the revolution have been avoided if just one of these factors was different? Say, if Louis XVI was a stronger leader, or if taxes were fair?
Or was it just an inevitable cascade? That's a great question to ponder. And think about that idea of plutocracy in the old regime. Do you see any parallels, any connections between those kinds of power structures then, and maybe things you observe in the world today?
Lots to think about. Keep exploring. Keep questioning.